Welcome to the Thursday Checkdown. I hope this was a bit of an unusual roll-in, but I got to say, Tip, it's great to see you.
Yes.
I told him off screen that I was going to complain about him never being on video. The fact is, Tip works a hard job, and he doesn't want to come in smelling nasty and everything, so he doesn't want to be on camera. But we don't have smell vision. So you can come in, just take a wet cloth and wipe your face, buddy. You'll be fine.
All right.
So I was looking back at all the people that we've had since we started this show less than a year ago, and it's amazing. It's amazing. But the next 4 weeks, okay, tonight's guest, who I'll mention in a minute, is a very special guest. Last week's guest, Glenn Rabney, I thought that was really interesting.
That was hilarious. Awesome.
Imran Pervez he's not the owner, but I think he's the CEO or COO of a company that's coming up with what I think is going to be a revolutionary addition to fantasy sports. Yeah. It's a game where you can literally play anybody who has 3 years worth of stats. And they're going to do it for baseball and basketball, and I think soccer, maybe hockey, I don't know. But we're going to talk to him next week about football. After that, we got Scott Fish, and he's going to make an announcement about some new live drafts during that show. Then we got Gary Davenport, IDP guru. Wow. And then Gina and Craig Noble. And then we have an unconfirmed guest for the week after that. And then it's the NFL draft, baby. And with this free agency period, look at it this way, Tip. Washington Commanders have traded Sam Howell to Seattle. That means their quarterbacks are Marcus Mariota, who they just signed, and Jake Fromm. Now, Jake Fromm, didn't he go to Michigan?
I thought was he Michigan?
I thought
Georgia.
Oh, he may have been Georgia. Doesn't matter. No team in the NFL is going into the year with those two guys as their starting quarterback. Either of those two guys. So with the number 2 pick, there's going to be a quarterback taken.
For sure.
Which brings us to tonight's guest, the quarterback of the Fantasy Football Expo. Yeah. Welcome to this show, Mr. Bob Lung.
This is why you're a Hall of Famer, because of that segue. You can't teach that. You're born with it.
Hey, I was listening to a Football Guys Dynasty podcast. They had three hosts on it. Outstanding. So I don't usually do a lot of Dynasty content because I don't really play in a lot of Dynasty leagues. I think I'm in 2. But it's never been one of my focuses. They were really good. And the thing I told them that made them good, Bell, I think Jeff Bell, Christian Williams, and I'm trying to think of the other gentleman's name. I don't have it on the top of my head. But all 3 of them, the interaction is what makes the show. They bring up interesting topics that were moot because the free agency had changed some of the things they were talking about, but they spoke about it respectfully, but they didn't always agree, which is what I think makes a great show, when you give multiple opinions. So our show tonight, we're going to talk to you about you. And what people need to understand, Tip's new, okay? He's a baby in the fantasy community. Yeah. Now, he's growing fast. He's doing a podcast with my mentor, Bob Harris.
Yeah, right.
And he's doing this one. And he's not a young man. He's in his 40s. But in fantasy terms, 5 years, Tip?
Compared to us, that's very young.
Is it about 5 years?
Yeah. No, I've been playing since 2005.
Okay, so 17 years. So you're still a teen.
Yeah. Still a teen.
How many years have you been playing, Greg?
86 is my first year.
So,
yeah. So, you and I are the old men
in
the game.
My 40th season of my home league. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got out of diapers in 86. So.
But see, Tip knows you for the Expo.
Right.
And Tip, are you going to the expo?
Yes, I will be.
Do you have your tickets?
Not yet. I'm getting my tickets this weekend, though. Me and my
Okay.
girlfriend are both going to be there.
Oh, Alana's going.
She's going to be there.
Very nice. Very
Yes,
nice. And Bob is telling me maybe, or we're going to break some news here, Bob. If I step on toes, you can smack me at the expo. He tells me the water park might be open in time for it.
So I'll break the news now. It's not.
hit that up.
It's
Oh,
not. Oh,
Yeah. I talked to them last night, and they said no, it's not going to be ready.
Okay.
I'm surprised because I thought they'd have it ready for Hall of Fame weekend, but I guess they're not. So
well,
That way the Hall of
next
Fame-
year. It'll be ready next year, right?
It'll be ready for 2025. So
Okay. Anyway,
Can you talk to us about the water park? Explain what is this?
So right beside the Hall of Fame, they have built a massive indoor water park with slides and all kinds of stuff. And so the idea is that then you can come year round to Hall of Fame and still do something fun with the kids. Bring them, take them to the museum, but then treat them to it's more for dad and mom for the museum.
Sure.
And he's kind of bored because he's 8 or 10.
Yeah.
Got him into football yet? No problem. Take him over to the water park. Have a good time over there. So so maybe we'll have some, water park Olympics or something. 2025 Expo.
we're actually going to go back to that 8 or 10 comment later.
Yeah.
Right now, I want to let Tip know that I know you not from the expo. When I retired, you weren't doing the expo yet.
Oh no.
Okay. So back in 2015, I knew you for your consistency guide.
Yeah.
So I want you to explain to everybody, what is a consistency guide? How did you decide to do it? And where can they get it today?
Well, they can't get it yet because it's not out for this year, but I'm working on it. In fact, I was working on it right before the show, getting it all ready. It'll be out early May of this year. Usually it's one of the first magazines to come out because rookies don't have any consistency, so there's not much to talk about there. But yeah, I started the whole consistency idea, as I mentioned, been playing since 1985. 2002, my touchdown-only team, who had the MVP, Shine Alexander on it of that year, who rushed for 15 touchdowns, and my team was the second highest scoring team, but my team went 7-7, didn't make the playoffs. And so, as many of you know, I'm an accountant by day. And so I started crunching numbers, and I realized that, well, Shine Alexander wasn't real consistent with his touchdowns that year. He scored 5 in one game. I think it was a Monday night game, 5 touchdowns in one game. In 2 other games, he scored 3, and then he had 2. So he scored 2/3 of his touchdowns in 3 games. So the other 11 games of the regular season, he did nothing because you get 0 points because there's no yards. It's touchdown only.
Old school.
And
yeah.
So I figured out that if he would have scored, 1 touchdown a week, I would have won 2 more games. And I would have made the playoffs and I would have won the championship. And so that's kind of how it all started. I'm like, well, if I can apply that to this simple league of touchdown only, I can apply this concept. And so I figured out a calculation that kind of creates what I call a clutch factor, or a number that each week in a typical 12 team, 4 points passing PPR, a quarterback needs about 19 to 20 points a week to earn a clutch game. Running backs and wide receivers are about 10 or 11 points, and a tight end was about 8 or 9. And it fluctuates depending on the years. Last year was actually quite low for quarterbacks, but and then more clutch games, more consistent, and then I just keep creating. Wrote for a bunch of sites, everybody from Roto Experts to Fanball back in the day, CBS Sports for a year, and then finally just decided to go on my own, started my own website, and then started writing the consistency guide because I felt like I was writing an article every year for some magazines that were out on the shelves, and it was cool to see my thing out there in a book. But I kept asking them, like, I have all these ideas to put profiles of the players from a consistency standpoint. And they're like, well, why don't you just write your own book and just self-publish it on Amazon? And as they say, the rest is history. So, 7 straight years now, I've been blessed and honored to be recognized as nominated as one of the best publications every year in fantasy football, won the award in 2018. And that's kind of where this all started. The Expo was just a dream because I lived in Canton, Ohio. And I watched the Hall of Fame grow, and I wanted to do something like it here.
Man, I'm telling you, that is a hell of a story, an amazing story, Bob. And we're going to talk a little free agency, so don't get that twisted. But as far as the consistency report, right? So talk to us about you talked to us about how you came about it, but talk to us how it has emerged over the years. What are some of the things that you've noticed, some of the trends that you've noticed in that time span that you've done with the consistency of those players?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've all seen, one of the first things I think that really started jumping out at me was the lack of consistency in tight ends. I don't think anybody has to be told that, but it really got bad over the last few years. I
don't know. My tight end is always consistent. I only draft Kelsey.
All right, well, there you go. So unless you draft like Greg, you had some issues. Maybe you got lucky. You'd get a T.J. Hawkinson, or maybe you had Sam Laporta this year, or a Mark Andrews was pretty consistent if he stayed healthy. But so that's what the guide does. That's what the website does. There's a tool there called the Consistency Report. You can, and what I like is, and I created it this way, was you can put in your own scoring method. So if you're non-PPR, half PPR, 6 points for passing, whatever your accumulation is, it will recalculate for you and give it to you. You can download it in Excel. You can sort it. You can do whatever you want with it. But that's, what I usually really trying to pinpoint for most people is the outliers at both ends. The people who score a lot of points but are not very consistent. And I'm looking at you, MVP Lamar Jackson, who was fourth in total points and 63% consistent last year. On the other side of that, we have people who maybe didn't score as many points, but had the consistency. And I'll highlight just one here. Kirk Cousins, obviously didn't play all the games. When he did play, he was 75% consistent. Trevor Lawrence, 12th in total points. Most people think he had a down year. He was still higher than Lamar Jackson. And just in case you want to know, Sam Howell, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, and Trevor Lawrence and Brock Purdy were more consistent than Lamar Jackson.
Wow.
And even more than that was Jordan Love, who was 71% consistent in top of it. So that's what I like this report, and why I created this was to show people you don't have to always grab, it's always about getting value. And if you can get value because you can get a Jordan Love 3 rounds later, maybe going into next year, or, versus Lamar Jackson, who probably will go in rounds 1, 2, 3, or 4, because somebody's going to grab him because they saw he was the MVP. And, they're the people where they're going to suffer when the consistency isn't there, which it normally isn't for him as well.
Using PPR year over year, how consistent are the running backs and wide receivers?
Wide receivers are always more consistent than running backs. This past year wasn't as good for running backs, wide receivers. Again, we're seeing the trend. It's more passing. It's all about the pass now. But this past year, after you get past McCaffrey, you really struggled unless you had, here's the only 5 players over 80% consistency who played well. And I'll say Jonathan Taylor, Kyron Williams are 2 of them, and they didn't play all the games. Kyron played 12, Jonathan Taylor played 9. So of the ones who played at least 13 or more games, only Raheem Mostert, David Montgomery, and Alvin Kamara were over 80% consistent. Most people not going to come up with that trivia question.
But how do you use that then?
Travis Etienne. What about Breece Hall? What about Joe? What about Bijan? All of them below 80%. Now, not that it was terrible. Bijan was 76, Mixon was 76. And if you can get over 70, that's a higher end. It's not an RB1, but it's a solid RB2.
But how do you use that in your draft prep?
Right, and you use that in your draft prep. So you can go to all the big sites, whoever you use. If you're a Fantasy Alarm or Guru Lead, whatever. Go there, get all your data, whatever they provide. Then add this. I always say I'm the French fries in the Happy Meal. Get your Big Mac from the big sites, and then add this French fries of consistency before you make those final decisions of where you're going to draft your players and where the real value is.
So Bob, so what you're telling me is you're endorsing the 0 RB strategy?
I'm not going to not defend it. I certainly was doing that quite a bit last year. In fact, one of the guys I drafted in one of the Kings Classics was in an auction league, and I bought Raheem Mostert for $4.
Wow.
And that's because I had bought JJ,
Wow.
Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and AJ Brown. I should have won the league, but no, they all had to get hurt or their quarterbacks got
At the
hurt.
wrong
And
time,
so
right?
I made the finals and lost. But I'm definitely, there aren't too many running backs that I'm going to be drafting in the first round, maybe second round.
Well,
they can prove to me that they can do it. Jonathan Taylor would be one of them. Obviously, McCaffrey, but not too many.
Not even the ones that are made the team moves, such as a Saquon.
I mean, yeah, certainly there's a lot of things just happen. I mean, I think Joe Mixon moves up, but heck, he was 6th last year in total points, 76% consistency. So, he's certainly somebody will be on my radar if he slips to the round 3. I don't know if he will, but
he will. He definitely will. Yeah.
Yeah, because people are going to be like, maybe, Bijan will probably be a first rounder.
Yeah.
You got to remember though, Bijan is sharing with a pretty good running back in Tyler Algier.
Yeah, no, he's not. And now they'll have a real quarterback now in Cousins, so that certainly helps the offense. And if they use him more out of the backfield, there's no question he certainly can be he'll go over that. I mean, he only missed by one game of going over the 80%, so I think he'll easily do that as much as Arthur Smith held him back. So, yeah, there's no question you got to love him. But, the James Cooks, the, Saquons, and some of these that change teams, maybe Pollard, even though that's a terrible offensive line. Pacheco's a guy that could be, a solid RB2. DeAndre Swift. I mean, Montgomery, like I said, was 86% consistent and missed 3 games. So he's quite a valuable asset as maybe a 3rd round pick or 4th.
He was a 6th round pick in most drafts.
Oh, I know he was. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So
I got Montgomery a lot, but I was targeting Gibbs. Yeah. And I wanted both of them because I knew they were both going to get touches.
Right.
I just didn't realize how good David Montgomery is between the tackles. He is a tremendous runner between the tackles.
Great runner, yeah.
And I see my guy Big Draft Energies in this house as well as Wendy and Mel. So we appreciate all you guys being on. But Breece Hall, big Draft Energy talked about Breece Hall. Breece Hall is one of my favorites. But he did not change teams. But I do feel like this is a year where he could be one of those guys that would pull up the consistency.
Before you ask a question about Breece Hall, I got slammed because I told a guy in Twitter that he got fleeced on a trade.
Oh.
He got Breece Hall and the 1.06 pick in a dynasty league, so rookie only. And he gave up Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, Rashad Bateman, a 2nd and a 3rd, a 209 and 305. I thought the multitude of players and picks was much better than Breece Hall and the 106 based on who I expected to get at 106. Now, I found out later it was a super flex, so that changes it a little bit, but not a lot. I mean, who really wants a rookie quarterback as their second quarterback in a super flex league? But I think Najee Harris, with the upgraded quarterback with Russ in Pittsburgh, I think Najee Harris is going to have a rebound year. But I think Jonathan Taylor is much better than Breece Hall. I want your take on that aspect. I
mean, if you're lining them up side by side, yeah, I have to agree. Jonathan Taylor is definitely the better back. And, will always be more. I mean, 2 years
Dynasty
ago,
league, though. Remember the dynasty aspect.
Yeah, no, it's dynasty. And, yeah, he's a couple years older for sure.
He's got Flacco at quarterback. I think that's huge. No, I really do.
Well, no, he's got Richardson there, Greg.
Yeah,
No, I don't believe Richardson's going to be ready at the beginning of the year. And even if he is, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't hire Flacco as a 1-year teach the kid how to play. Because Richardson played in 4 games and missed over half of 2 of them.
Right. Yeah. No, there's no question he had his issues last year. But yeah, Flacco will certainly be a good mentor for him for sure. That was a good signing for their behalf, especially since Minshew went to Las Vegas. So, but yeah, Dynasty, that's Hall and, just because of the years you might get out of him versus, Taylor. But I don't know if that was a terrible fleece. Depends on what depth you have and what you need and where you're at. There's so many things to look into it, but to each his own.
You got 2 starting running backs for Hall, basically.
Yeah, if we're talking Hall versus Jonathan Taylor, this is my thing. You got Anthony Richardson there. What's going to happen when they get to the 1-yard line? Is it going to go to Jonathan Taylor? Is it going to go to Anthony Richardson? Same thing with Hurts and Saquon. I know that Hurts, he can do his thing. They'd love to do the tush-push thing. But how many of those touchdowns, that's what they rely upon. Are they gonna give the ball to Jonathan Taylor to save Anthony Richardson? Same thing with Saquon to save
No, they're going to save their quarterbacks.
They're going to save their quarterbacks. So
if they have a running back that is proven inside the 3, they're going to save their quarterbacks.
And they also don't have Jason Kelsey at center anymore. So let's remember
they don't have him. They got offensive line issues. The Jets, they have bolstered their offensive line a little bit. So I like Breece Hall a lot this year. I don't know if
what happens when Rodgers gets hurt or goes away.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm quite ready to say Jonathan Taylor over Breece Hall, but it's very close, very close.
Well, add in Najee Harris and Rashad Bateman to that mix.
Bateman, not so much, but Najee Harris is.
Baltimore says they're going to use Bateman more this year. We'll see. They haven't really used him the first 3 years.
Yeah, right.
Bob, your opinion. Was fleece too strong a term?
It might have been too strong. I don't know. Again, it just depends on how you look at it. Dynasty as a whole, it's really so unique. And I play in a couple of them, and I struggle because I always think I'm playing for this year, and I know that's not how you're supposed to think.
That's how I do it in Dynasty too. Play to win now, because tomorrow's not guaranteed.
I've done the Sean McVay trade all my picks for all the veteran players that have 3 years at least, and I don't care. I want to win now. It's not a dynasty if you don't win one. So what's the point? So, but yeah, it's what I was trying to do in the meantime. So let me throw out this trade to you, and you tell me which side got the better deal. So one team gives up Justin Jefferson. That's it. The other team gets Treylon Burks, Deontay Johnson, Jalen Waddle, and a first-round pick in 2025.
I'll take Waddle and the first-round pick, and I don't care about the other 2 players. I think Waddle is special. I think Jefferson is special. Yeah. I think Waddle has a quarterback in Tua. I don't know they're going to have a rookie. Minnesota is going to have a rookie quarterback.
You don't think Darnold's going to start?
Sam Darnold? Are you kidding me? No, I don't think he's going to start.
They're paying him money to start. It seems like they're going to at least start him for maybe the first 6 games or so.
Have you seen him
Justin
play?
Jefferson is QB proof. The dude is
nobody is QB proof. Nobody. Garrett Wilson is a fine wide receiver. He was not QB proof.
He's not Justin Jefferson now.
Did Justin Jefferson finish as the number 1 wide receiver last year? What happened to Jefferson when Kirk Cousins went down?
He took 7 weeks off because he was hurt.
He was hurt, right?
Was he?
I'm telling you, no running back is line proof. You've got to Barry Sanders still had to have blocking.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Not
don't care.
But,
Not a lot, but he still had to have blocking. And Detroit was often rated as one of the top lines, not because they could block, but because Barry was so good at evading tackle. But bottom line is, I'll take Waddle and hope one of the other receivers pans out. I'm not sold
at the
on.
time the trade was done, that person, which was me, didn't know that Deontay Johnson was going to be in Carolina.
Yeah.
I was super excited when I saw that Russell Wilson was going to Pittsburgh. And then I'm like, oh, shit. So anyway, I gave up Justin because I wanted to get something before they left town. And I knew if Cousins left town that
It was over.
Would be as strong.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I fleeced anybody, but I felt like it was a fair deal for me.
I think you won the trade. I won't say fleeced, but I think you won, especially when you throw in that first round pick.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's next year's first round, but still.
But you'll have 2 first rounds so you can move up.
Right. I do have 2 first rounds for next year now.
So now I got to know, surprise us about the Expo. You and I talked about a King's Classic for an unusual group of people. And I would like to say, I talked to Scott about his son, Ian. Mm-hmm. Apparently, Ian, a 10-year-old, has done better than I have in the Scott Fish Bowl the last 2 years. The last 2 years. I'm a Hall of Famer, and a 9 and 10-year-old is better than me.
Yeah.
So you want to talk a little bit about this?
We had a conversation with Greg the other night, and he brought up somebody, I forget who it was.
Terry Cannon.
And he talked about how this guy would kind of create and run kids leagues so that they would learn how to play and all that kind of cool stuff. And I said, what if we created a prince and princess, since we have a king and queen's classic now, which then would be kids under 8, everybody under 18. We won't set a minimum, but we assume that there'll be at least 10. But they have to be there with their parents. I mean, all kinds of special rules, obviously. But they come to the expo and they can do
a live draft.
A live draft at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, covered by SiriusXM.
Or Matt and Coop.
Or Better Fantasy or somebody. Yeah. So we, just kicking it around. But for those who are listening and watching, if you've got some ideas or some things, there's things to think through. But I just think it would be fun because a lot of people are like, well, I could bring my kid. They do play fantasy, but
I think one negative would be the cost for the kid to come. I think $75 for 3 days is a little expensive if you're bringing a kid, because if you got 3 kids, and only one plays fantasy football, you can't bring just the one. So
and they don't have to buy the tickets for the events if they're not going to them. So
but I think that if we could find a sponsor that would sponsor the kids, that would be good. I know Scott said he's run a couple of youth leagues for Scott Fishbowl, and he said the biggest problem, and I'm going to try to get you guys talking together, would be the number of kids at the expo. There's just not enough. Right. But that you could take the boys and girls and combine them into one league because we only need 8.
Right. Have at least 8 or 10, try to get 12.
Or 14 if you can get it.
14 if we get that many. But yeah, I mean, it's just an idea. We always want to expand and tackle new things. And, with somebody like Scott's kid who's,
better than me, better than a Hall of Famer. Say it.
Better than us. Then, why not try to do something like that? We have the room in the Hall of Fame to put them in, so we could put them in the same room as we draft our one's King's Classics. We take up three big rooms, but we could put them in a, corner there. They could have their own draft. Maybe we could get a couple of the kids, to come on, have Sirius XM or Matt Deutsch's group, Better Fantasy Network, to interview them or, follow their draft and, and then they'll win a belt championship belt just like anybody else would, and just see how it goes. So, it's not 100% official, but it's certainly an idea that I think has some merit. We just have to figure out all the details to make it work. So,
hey Bob, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Greg.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, Bob, if for somebody who hasn't been to the expo, can you just give us the rundown of what we can expect?
So basically, I would say, if you're looking for the 30-second answer, it's just a fun weekend in Canton, Ohio. If you've never been to the Pro Football Hall of Fame and always wanted to go, you're really into fantasy football, and a lot of the names and people, whether it's at ESPN or Yahoo or CBS or whoever, there's really no reason not to come and enjoy the weekend. Like you said, it's only $75 for the whole weekend to come to 2 parties. There's the Friday night party. There's a Saturday night party at the football stadium. We play flag football in a little tournament there. We have a cornhole tournament. But what's great about it, if you come to learn too, from the best of the best. So on Saturday this year, which is new, we are having our sports betting Saturday. So from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. We're going to be on stage with all the smartest betting people in the industry. And they're going to teach you how to, from sports betting 101 to, how to handle your money management or your whatever you call it, responsible gaming, looking at some of the new apps and games and sports books to talk about, how to get engaged and how to learn and, how to make the right bet and, what to look for, what to watch for, because that's what these people are really good at doing.
And how to set limits.
Yeah, set limits. I mean, just learning how to do that, because it's not just as simple, just I'm looking on every day and just, bet a bunch of bets. Well, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. There is a system, and some of these guys are very good at it, and ladies. And so that's on Saturday this year. That's brand new. Like I said, then we'll play flag football. Then we have the Saturday night party. And then Sunday is basically fantasy football Sunday. So for 6 hours from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. is all of the brightest and smartest people on stages. And there's 50 trade show booths full of every website from Dynasty to IDP to Football Guys to Sports Affiliation to, consistency and everything in between.
Did you guys hear that? Did you hear the name he dropped? The Sports Affiliation. JC, Iggy, Evan, thank you.
Yeah, no, and they're all there. They're huge supporters of it. So yeah, just come and enjoy. Bring the wife and kids if you want. There's certainly things to do other than the water park. It won't be open, but there is a water place, kind of a kids place not far away called the Sluggers and Putters. They have like a little racetrack, and they have batting cages and putt-putt golf and all kinds of fun things. So, it certainly can do all that. But it's just a fun weekend. You get to come, bring your friends, and just hang out and meet some new friends. And next thing you know, you'll know everybody on Twitter. You'll be able to have a conversation with Bob Harris or Howard Bender or Mike Clay or Marcus Grant or Greg Kellogg. So there's all these Hall of Famers that you can talk to that have made it in the fantasy sports industry and are very knowledgeable about what they know, and you can pick their brain and have a drink with them. It's all fun.
And Andy Behrens, yeah.
Now I am going to ask you. We're going to go back to the free agency aspect of things, but I do want Greg to ask a question. Go ahead, Greg. What you got?
You got one for me. I was waiting on you. I was going to say it's your turn. I do want to know, and I did not pre-qualify this question with Bob. I like when I'm going to bring up something that he may not be ready to answer. Bob, if you're not ready to answer, don't answer. Just say
I'm always ready. I'm just a question whether I'm lying or not.
Well, last year you had a very special guest, an NFL player.
I did.
Tell us who it was.
Des Bryant.
We all got to meet Des. Iggy got to play against Des in flag football. Dez's team did not win the flag football tournament. I think they were second.
No, they won.
They did win. I thought they lost in the championship. But
no, they won.
bottom line is, do you have a celebrity guest lined up, not named Greg Kellogg, for this year?
I do not. Dez came because he had a new product to promote. I don't think he'll be back, but those who know, and we'll leave it at that. But that doesn't mean that out of the blue something may not happen. So, like I said, Dez came out of the blue and said, "Hey, I want to come," and we made it happen. I'm definitely working closer with the Hall of Fame this year. They're getting more involved. Whether that means they might bring somebody, I don't know. I've heard some rumors from some of these other people who are bigger players and have celebrity people like promote their brand that maybe they might bring somebody, but we're not 100% sure. So,
well, I
figured,
I don't want to push you.
This thing for celebrities.
Yeah, but I don't want to push you. But there is, a Hall of Fame back named Barry Sanders that I would die to see personally.
You would.
I mean, his bust was cool.
We could probably get him there. So
his bust was cool, but yeah. I mean, notice the logo, which are there behind me. Notice the logo. Okay, yeah. Barry played his whole career for that team.
Maybe we could get Scott Mitchell or something. That would be a lot cheaper.
Yeah. Hey, he's alive, Greg. Hold up.
I actually like Scott Mitchell. I thought he did very well for Detroit.
First thing came to mind. I don't know why.
But I would have gone with Herman Moore probably, or Megatron or Megatron. Yeah,
I met him for the last couple of years. He's a cool guy. He's very tall.
Very tall. Very good hands.
Yes, he is. Yeah. But no, I mean, last year Lisa Ann came. That was cool. She's a big celebrity in the social media world. Every year I email Tom Everett Scott, actor, movie actor who plays in Scott Fishbowl. He wants to come, but hasn't made it yet. So it's interesting you say Donald Driver. So Donald Driver actually has his own fitness company at the Hall of Fame. And
Donald
could be in town. If he sticks around, maybe I'll see if the Hall can have him come up and hang out with us at one of the parties. But Donald Driver actually has his own fitness company at the Hall of Fame Village now. So that is a possibility we can work on. So Sniper Mel, we will see what we can do.
That would be cool. That would be really cool. All right, let's shift gears. Let's talk a little free agency. So we talked a lot about some of the players that have changed teams, but what team, to you, Bob and Greg, both of you, which team do you feel like hasn't really made any noise or made any noise in free agency that you thought could make one or two moves to really catapult their team?
Well, I think everybody knows the answer first off, and that's the Dallas Cowboys because they've done nothing.
I wanted to hear somebody get on the Dallas Cowboys. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. I'm not a fan of them, so I couldn't give two shakes about it. But I mean, that's certainly the biggest by far. After that, I mean, I think a lot of these teams that need to make moves are strapped. Look at and some of these teams have made moves that they've had to, like the Miami Dolphins. Do they even have anybody on defense now? Because I felt like they got rid of everybody.
They got Fuller. Actually, they picked up Kendall Fuller this afternoon.
Okay.
Detroit doesn't typically, since we got Brad Holmes, they don't spend a lot. They do pick up free agents. They got CJGJ last year, and they've picked up a defensive lineman, a defensive tackle, and a cornerback. Yeah. And they just don't spend a lot. They build through the draft and they fill holes.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing too, is just because you don't do anything, well,
Detroit's got money. They got cap.
Right. But you also want to make sure you get the right players. And if you right now, the Lions are a well-oiled machine. And I don't think you would want to
Oh,
Go
Bob, you're gonna fill
You're not
Greg
going to go get
Head up even more.
Calvin Ridley just for the sake of getting Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they lost Jonah Jackson. That's a big loss
Yeah.
in free
right.
agency. But they still have probably a top 7 line in football, even without Jonah Jackson. So, but like I say, Detroit typically with Brad Holmes builds through the draft and fills holes through free agency, and they're very judicious in their use of their money. And I think Brad has been so successful at taking a 3-13 team to the verge of the Super Bowl that a lot of GMs are going to mirror his methodology.
Sure.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
I got Bob Lung. I mean, what else do you have? Bob, who's the favorite in this year's? Is it the Blanded division that drafts on XM?
So I'm in the Blanded division. There's the Jim Brown division, the George Blanded division, and then the Len Dawson division, which is the online ones that have the international folks in, which I got my UK FFC. I went to the first ever London-based UK Fantasy Football Expo in London last year. Did my Scott Fishbowl draft live there. That was very cool. Those guys are doing a great job over there. They're building it nice and slow. They went from 50 to 100 people in the first year, or the second year. They're hoping to keep growing it. So hats off to Dan Hughes and my boy Murph over there from, everybody, you guys know them all over there. Murph's had a lot of struggles with health, and God be praised, he's getting back to normal, and they're just doing a wonderful job over there. So, so there's thunder and lightning go around my house. Let's hope the internet doesn't, so the power doesn't go out.
Got to get those guys. You got to hook me up with those guys so I can get them on the show.
Yeah.
We have Mauricio Gutierrez coming on the show.
Right. Yeah, right.
And I know he's big in fantasy football in Mexico.
Yeah, Canada, Mexico, obviously we get a lot of people come down for the expo for that. But, I know that a lot of those guys and girls over there would love to come into Canton some year. I mean, they said they're going to try, but it's not cheap. But we'd love to have them. And that's why we created the Len Dawson division, so that we could have international people drafting in, and many of them have won championships. So yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
Is there one quick question.
Go ahead, Greg. Yeah.
Is there a Germany setup?
Yes. So actually, the guy who just won this past year, his name is Peter Gent, Gent. He is from Germany. He was actually sharing a team with what's his name? Kurt. Oh shoot, I lost his
Cousins.
And no, it's not Kirk Cousins, but anyway, so they shared a team and they won the title this year. So we have Germany, we have a couple in UK, we have of course Mauricio. Now Mauricio actually got to move up and draft live with us because somebody backed out and couldn't make it. So we moved them down to the online so that it stays South Africa. Thank you. Kurt Holiday. I just went.
Okay.
But anyway, so Mauricio actually moved up and got to draft live with us, while somebody else, I think it was Fabiano or somebody, had to go because they couldn't make it this year, drafted online. So we keep everybody in the same. So it's a lot of the flip-flopping of that stuff. But, we, like I said, hats off to the guys over the UK for building this up, and hopefully I'll get back there in a couple of years.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you so much for talking about that, because I was going to ask you about this shirt. So it's really cool. Let us see it again. There it is. Look, that's awesome, man.
So I had to get a shirt to represent. So I put that on tonight because I was like, oh yeah, let me put that on.
That's cool. I mean, Bob, did you ever think that it would become international like this? Like when you first started it off like that?
I didn't think any of this. I mean,
isn't it crazy?
My dream was just that people would come.
Yeah.
Like I said, when I had 75 people the first year and I sold all 30 booths, and we had Bob Harris there, and Mike Clay came into town, and and Dave Richards, and then we had the King's Classic going. I mean, to me, at that point, I would have died a happy man, because it's like, look, I did something that nobody else did. I brought the 24 best people, in the industry live to Canton. We had SiriusXM there. And it was trending on Twitter that day, the hashtag King's Classic. in the sports area because everybody was so excited about it. And if, like I said, I would never thought we would be at 750 people in year 4, let alone have it be 3 days and international and, people, trying to, replicate it over in the UK. And so, no, yeah, it was just a dream to have people come to Canton, Ohio, because I knew that we had kind of a cool vibe with the Hall of Fame and the stadiums. And then they were building this dome. And I'm like, well, let's just do this. And, as they say, if you build it, they will come. And they did.
There were only 750 people last year. It seemed like a lot more than that. It really did.
It does. But yeah. Yeah, it is amazing, but that's what we had. So we're hoping to keep kicking it up and, get it over 1,000 here in the next year or 2 or 3. But, as long as everybody's enjoying themselves, if we always stay at 750, that's okay. It's all good.
We're promoting it, but I do have to say one thing for Iggy. Michigan one more time.
Oh my God.
Well, that's what I said. If Greg says Michigan one more time, so Michigan one more time.
Yeah. Well, I had what the consequences. We got to know what's going to happen now.
Well, hey, it's right next to Ohio, right?
Yeah, all right. Michigan is very close to Ohio, so we get a lot of Michigan people come down for the expo. So yeah.
And we're promoting it everywhere we go. Tip?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
As far as, so the last time I talked to you on Spaces and on X, you talked about the Madden bus. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I just really love that story.
The bus, the actual BUS, not the BUSD.
Not the BUSD, the BUS.
Okay.
The Madden
Yeah,
bus.
so they actually have that now on campus. The Madden Cruiser sits there, and like during Hall of Fame weekend, they'll put it out and you can tour it for free and walk through it. It's the older one, like when they kind of upgraded him to a nicer one later in his career. This was the one that they kind of started it all. But yeah, it's kind of cool to go through and you can see all the stuff. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people probably they know who John Madden is, but they don't know the story that he was petrified to fly. So he went everywhere in this RV, and it was called the Madden Cruiser. And so every game he went to, he was driven there. He would never fly a plane. So
That is crazy.
so he didn't do any overseas games. Just
how did he travel with his team? Because his team, when he was coaching, flew.
I'm 90% sure he just left earlier and rode in. I don't know what he rode in back when he played for the Raiders, but I'm pretty sure he didn't fly. But
That's wild.
Yeah. I drove him one year for Hall of Fame, but I forgot to ask him that question.
Okay. That's something that our fans don't know, but I do because you mentioned it last year. You drive a lot of the Hall of Famers around. Who are you driving this year?
So I've retired after 34 years. But yeah, I was doing that as a volunteer transportation driver. And, while I enjoyed it a lot and it's just an amazing weekend, 5 days of that. And then 3 days later, I have 5 days of the expo. It just physically isn't possible when you get to 60 years old. So I decided to pack that one up and I'll still probably go over there and, maybe, go to some of the events or just walk around campus or whatever, because it is a fun time. But yeah,
most interesting story from someone you drove.
Interesting.
To you.
There's so many. I want to do one quick because, like I said, I can tell you the Al Davis story, but it takes a long time. I'll tell the one real quick that was probably the most mind-blowing at the time and even more mind-blowing when I found out why. So I think it was 1993, which had been about my 3rd or 4th year on the committee. And Walter Payton was inducted. And I was just jacked up, like, oh my gosh, I get to meet Sweetness. This is going to be so cool. He's going to be the super nice guy and everything. And we never saw him. In fact, they struggled to get him to come out of his hotel room to go to events. And it was
Shy?
really weird because we all thought that Walter Payton was this very outgoing, super nice, we'll be on time for everything. And he was like, not that he was mean. Like, I didn't drive him. This is all hearsay. But they're like, you're going knocking on the door. And he's like, no, give me another half hour. And they're like, we got to go. You got, this thing starts and it's on live TV. And so it was just this real messy weekend. And it was just a lot of confusion of what was going on. Fast forward, I don't remember how many years after or this has been since, but there was a book written about, like an autobiography, but I think it was after he passed away. One of the chapters is all about Hall of Fame weekend and the fact that his mistress had her own room at the same hotel as his wife and kids. And so he was trying to juggle both without anybody knowing it.
My respect for Walter Payton just dipped.
Yeah. And it was like, oh, but it all made sense why he was hiding and not doing. And yeah, so that was a real shock and disappointment at the same time, but probably the most unique story that I ever remember was that. But yeah,
it is disappointing. It really is. But you can't expect your heroes to live up to your expectations.
Yeah, sometimes your heroes will let you down. You're right.
So I've got to ask you. You said you were working on it. The consistency guide this year. Can people get on a waiting list for it? How much will it cost?
There is no waiting list. I'll just announce it. It's usually around the first weekend in May, which this year is the 3rd or 4th. I shouldn't have a problem getting it out this year. Last year, if you remember, the NFL draft ended on May 1st. Mm-hmm. So therefore, I had to get it out on not till the 7th. This year, the draft is now moved back to early in the last week. So it's now the 23rd through the 25th, as you can see right beside Greg's head. Mm-hmm. So I should have plenty of time after the draft is done. Because all I really do is make tweaks on, a big name player. Like wherever Marvin Harrison goes, that's going to affect the wide receivers on that team, obviously.
It is?
I'm
kidding.
You never know. But unless they get drafted by Seattle, then what are we gonna do?
Yeah, they've got a few wide receivers.
Yeah, they got too many as it is. So anyway, it'll be out early May. Sadly, there is no way to do waiting list on Amazon. You can pre-order, but the problem is that as soon as I upload it to see what it looks like I know what it looks like, but sometimes there's little tweaks in the what they call the bleeds and if it's wrong, then it still is live and all those pre-orders will go out. I know this because we made this mistake once. And so as soon as I uploaded it to see if it looked okay, it made it live. It wasn't okay. And so I changed it, but then all the people got their initial orders printed with the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't do it.
So
anymore.
Amazon prints it and sends it out?
Amazon prints it and mails it for me.
How much?
How much is the book?
Yeah.
Or how much do they charge me?
Well, how much are they charging?
So to buy the book on Amazon is $13.99. So.
Okay, that's good. Under $15.
Yeah, that's good. Really good.
Yeah.
Especially if you get it before your draft.
Yeah, and then the nice thing is once you buy it, there's always a link at the bottom that you can come to the website or you can email me and I will send you any updates because I'll update it during the summer. Somebody gets hurt, something happens, and I'll make changes to the book. I'll re-upload the new version into the book. To put it on Amazon for people to buy it then after that. But then anybody who bought it early, I don't want them to be penalized that they don't have the updated copy. So I'll just send them an updated PDF. Of course, I update my draft rankings, which is my tier draft list. And I always send new versions and I always put them on the website that people can upload if they've bought it anyway. So that way you always have an updated copy, updated rankings all the way through the summer.
Bob Harris used to do that with his stuff. He would always send out updates because every day some news is going to change something.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I don't have anything else.
I do
Okay.
actually, Bob. So you've done so many great things for the fantasy community. I mean, hell, the expo, the consistency reports. I want to know, Bob, who got you started with fantasy football? Like, what you know, there's always that one person or maybe a group of people. How did you get started into it? Like, I talk to us about that.
Yeah. So obviously in 1985, there wasn't 60 million people playing. But a friend of mine went to the local bookstore, was just, he was a reader. He always read books and stuff, but he was into sports like I was, we followed all the football stuff. So anyway, he calls me, he says, Hey, come over to my house. I got to show you this book I just bought. And it wasn't even like a full-size book. It was like a pamphlet book, like a shorter version, paperback. And it was put out by a guy named Chris Charpentier. And I don't know, Greg, do you know?
I don't know him, but I know the name. Yeah.
So this guy wrote
and
this book.
And that's CHRIS.
Yeah.
For Chris. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like Carpenter, but it's like
Charpentier.
And there's an IER. It's like Charpentier or something like that. Anyway, the book was just simply called Playing Fantasy Football. And it was basically just a laid out, simple version of get 12 people together, draft your teams, do it. Here's the scoring, and all that kind of stuff. And
that was standard scoring back then too, probably.
Well, yeah, I mean, like
no yardage bonuses, no point per reception.
No, we did touchdown only because I said, well, I'll have to be the commissioner because I was the only one who had access to these things called personal computers in 1985 with Lotus 123 to do my spreadsheet. Microsoft. You're
laughing. The struggle was real.
I bet.
The struggle,
I bet it was.
For the first 10 years, we used box scores out of USA Today to figure out.
I would get the newspaper on Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday I would put them into my little Lotus 123 report spreadsheet. I would print off 12 copies, and I would put them in 12 envelopes with 12 address labels and put 12 stamps on them and put them in the mail so that they got them on Friday, so that then on Sunday I could come home from church and have 43 messages on my phone with all of their lineups that they were putting in for the week with all the changes, because there was only one thing that you could watch, and that was the NFL pregame from 11 or from noon to 1, and that was your only way you got updates. So wherever they were, I don't remember all the people back then, but if you heard, hey, Joe
He's
Burrow is going to play, then you had to call my phone and leave a message. Go, Bob, hey, I got to switch out. Dan Marino got hurt in practice and pregame, and so I'm got to put in this guy quarterback, and so I had to write all these down so that I could then know who was what roster. And like you said, the struggle was real.
You're doing the Trump thing with your hands. I actually love it. I do, because everybody does that at some point in their life. So sorry to bring politics into this.
But and so that book, my friend handed me that book, and we started the league with we got 12 guys and started up. Like I said, we're going into our 40th year this year.
Wow.
I think we have 5 or 6 of the originals. We don't draft, and the other fun thing was we held our first draft in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Oh my God.
Because I said, well, we should call ourselves, we should draft. And we knew the executive director, his son went to high school with us. So we knew him personally. So, we called up the kid and said, hey, is your dad there? And they're like, yeah. They're like, hey, can you ask him if we can have our fantasy football draft at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in their boardroom?
And they didn't even know what that was.
Oh, they had no idea what it was. They're like, what is it? I go, you don't have enough time to explain. And I said, all we want is your boardroom for 2 hours. How much would it cost? They're like, oh, for you can have it for free. Just pay the admission fee, which is $10 back then.
Wow.
So we paid $10. We went in, we sat in the boardroom of the Hall of Fame, and so we called ourselves the Hall of Fame Fantasy Football League. That's what we're still known as, the HOFL. And we probably for the first 5-10 years did the draft there live. And then of course, then technology came around, and we still did our draft until really about, I want to say 10 years ago. We finally had to go online because guys moved out of town. And it was just tough for them to get, back.
What's your software league management system?
We've used ESPN now for the last 13 years.
Okay. I was hoping you were going to say MFL because I love my call.
So we used Yahoo. Wasn't Yahoo the first one?
Yes.
Okay, we used Yahoo for a while. Then we switched to MFL for a while. And then we switched to ESPN. And I think I have the links to everything still. Like somebody wants me to create so for our 20th anniversary, we did a t-shirt with all the winners on the back. So somebody's asked me to make the 40th one. And I go, I have to see if I can find all of the winners. But it would be fun if I could, and then put, all the names on the back and our 40th. So I'm going to try to do something for t-shirts for our.
Do you have your own web page?
We do not. No, I wasn't that good.
No, but somebody should take your league because it's one of the oldest in football. It's one of the oldest.
There. It's definitely got to be one of
there them. There should be Andy Behrens. If you're listening, the Hall of Fame should have the Hall of Fame League immortalized on your webpage.
Well, we were talking about the fact that, and I've mentioned this to the Hall before. I said there's still the papers from the first draft that they did in Oakland that they did at the King's X Bar in Oakland, and had the first documented fantasy football draft in 1969, which was staff of the Oakland Raiders. And the guy and he just passed away like recently, they still have the papers that he wrote down. And their first 3 picks were Jim Brown, George Bland, and Len Dawson, which is why we named our 3 divisions after that.
They should have those immortalized in the Hall of Fame.
The Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, good idea.
Anyway. Oh yeah, good idea. Do it. Just do it. It wouldn't take that much to get them.
I wouldn't think so, especially since the guy's passed away. But yeah.
Nice name drops. I didn't see who said that, but that's cool. All right. Is there anything you want to announce about the expo? Something else? Are the hotels selling out? I know I've got my room already.
I mean, definitely. So a couple things. One, I don't know if the DoubleTree sold out yet. However, it does go usually pretty fast. So if you haven't gotten your tickets and you want to be in the main host hotel, which everybody's in, definitely get your tickets now. Then when you buy your ticket, a link will pop up for the hotels. Get that. Number 2, April 1st, the tickets go up $10. So another reason to buy them by the end of the month is to save $10 per ticket, and also to get your spots in at the DoubleTree Hotel. So definitely do that. And it's at thefantasyfootballexpo.com.
Okay. Tip, the rooms have 2 queen beds, and I don't have a roommate. So if you want to share costs, we can do that. Second thing, the most important question, what color are this year's t-shirts?
They will be either orange, and they're going to be Browns colors. So they're either going to be brown with the orange logo, or they're going to be orange with brown. I haven't figured out what's going to look best. Probably do the brown, because we like to do dark colors, light colors year after year. So last year we were the Chargers, this year the Browns. And what team we're going to be next year colors?
I have no idea. Hopefully the Lions.
As I say, I thought you knew this already. I thought we've had this conversation.
Oh no, you haven't.
Lions.
So if you're doing dark brown, you could do either the gray, the silver, or you could do the light blue with the gray lettering.
We'll change it. Next year will be the light colors for the Lions. That's what I'm saying.
Well, but the Lions wear 2 different colored uniforms.
Well, I know. Lions wear 17 different color uniforms.
Yeah.
With the traditional color.
Was it the Steelers the year before last?
Yes.
Because you had some extra shirts left and you were going to give me one, but I bought it because
Okay.
I thought you needed.
I need the money.
Well, you didn't need the money, but I just didn't think it was right to take one for free when other people were paying for them. So I got a black one and I got the sky blue one from the Chargers. So
Yep.
you can bet if I'm still kicking, I'll be there next year too
Yeah, you will. Yeah,
to get
yeah,
the Lions one. But it's the people, Bob. It's the people. That's why you go.
Yep. No, definitely come. If you're even slightly afraid because you think, well, Twitter's full of trolls and I don't want to go there and be embarrassed because I don't know what I'm talking about, or I've only played a few years, and how can I talk to Greg Kellogg, who's been playing, since the dinosaurs roamed the earth, and have an intelligent conversation with them? We're all smart. You're smart. Everybody's smart. Just a question of whether or not you've done what you've done with it. We all have our ideas and we can all share them and we can all disagree and still have drinks and get along and have a great time.
And it's fun. And like I've said many times, in the fantasy football world, every industry in the world has good people and bad people. The unique thing about fantasy football is if you're a bad person, if you take advantage of people, the truth will out. And once your reputation goes out, you're not in the world anymore. Right. So the people you meet at the expo that have been around 10 years or longer, all good people. Yeah. They will. Bob Harris, who I consider my mentor, who I consider the best person I've ever known for fantasy football, will talk to anybody. Yes. He will. I talked to Wendy for 15 minutes. She had no idea who I was.
Oh, yeah.
And
right.
and then I asked her to be on my pod, and she says, "Oh, but I don't know as much about fantasy football as you do." Guess what? It's the job of the podcast host to make the guest look good. If you're doing gotcha type stuff, you're not going to get any guests because the truth will out. All I have to do to make Wendy look good is ask her opinion questions, because you can't be wrong with your opinion. Your opinion is always right because it's your opinion. And she loved it so much, she now has one of the best podcasts on the air. I really love Wendy and Carla's podcast. Game Changers. Game Changers going to Wednesday nights soon. I'm not sure when, but Carla and Wendy can let you know. And they land some of the best guests, both female and male. Oh, by the way, I got to tell you, Wendy, Howard says he'll accept not being your bestie, but he wants to be number 2.
Nice.
Anyway, I think that's enough. You got anything else, Tip?
No, Bob, thank you so much. Love
thank you guys.
The story.
Appreciate it.
Love the insight. Love talking about the expo. Cannot wait. Iggy, JC, let's go. Take it home.
I not quite yet. JC, I did tell Howard that. We're talking about Howard Bender. I did tell him that JC's number 2. He's her BFF. But I don't think Howard's accepting of it. So you might have to fight for him. But I got to tell you, I got to say this because a lot of people see this podcast later on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, it's put on by the Sports Affiliation. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Sports Affiliation. Leave us a comment. I go in and check the comments. Unfortunately, all the comments that come on here are stored on Twitter and not on the YouTube video. And I haven't figured out how to go back and look at those, so I'm going to work with JC and figure a way to get back and look at them. But, Bob, thank you. Tip, thank you for appearing on camera. And Iggy, JC, take us out.